Time to start. Hi, everybody. Nice to have you this morning. Just arranging some things here. All right, fantastic. So, my name is Ani Pomo. I am a Buddhist nun for the past 25 years and the director and resident teacher of Songtsen Gampo Buddhist Center of Cleveland, which is in Lakewood, Ohio, a suburb of Cleveland. Obviously, because of the pandemic, we're not doing anything at the center right now. However, we're doing everything online. So kind of cool. Hi, Todd. Good morning. So it makes it very easy for anybody, anywhere in the country to join us for classes, for meditation like this, and on Zoom for retreats and lots of other stuff. So do check out the links below. Everything is there. I really recommend you sign up for the newsletter because that's how everything is going to be given to you on a silver platter. So today we are going to be talking about the 6 paramitas, or the 6 transcendent perfections. We have done 2 or for the first 2 of the 6, and today we're going to be talking about patience, which is the 3rd one. Okay, so before we begin, we want to start with our bodhicitta motivation. So bodhicitta is the wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. It is the entire thrust and reason and purpose of this practice. The idea is that currently we are kind of swimming in the same ocean and drowning with everybody else. So drowning in suffering, drowning in conflicting emotions, drowning in problems. So the idea is that we want to attain enlightenment so we can not only be free of all of these things for ourselves, but also help others to attain the same state. So we begin bodhicitta with, compassion, just ordinary compassion, when we consider the suffering of beings. So right now we're going through COVID. There are fires. There are, other natural disasters all over the world, wars, sufferings closer to home, sickness, death, abuse, all kinds of things, unfortunately. So when we think of these things, there's a kind of tender heart that arises where there's this wish, I wish I could do something. I wish these people or animals didn't have to suffer so much, So that's the beginning of bodhicitta, but it's not the same as bodhicitta, because bodhicitta includes the wisdom that understands what is the cause of suffering, which is fundamental ignorance. And that fundamental ignorance is about really the nature of reality. So there's the understanding that in order to stop the symptoms, which is suffering of various types, we have to stop the cause, which is that fundamental ignorance. So bodhicitta motivation means no matter what we do, whether it's study, practice, contemplation, just virtuous deeds, all of that we do with others in mind. So I really invite you to try to develop that motivation for the time that we're going to be spending here today. So the other thing we do before the teachings is to bring our minds towards our precious teachers. So in our case, we have the incredible good fortune of being led by Jigme Khyentse Rinpoche, Tuku Pema Wangyo Rinpoche, and Taklung Mato Rinpoche. And there are so many other really great teachers in this world, like the Dalai Lama, the Karmapa, so many others. So we just think of all of them with a great deal of gratitude for them continuing to return to cyclic existence in order to benefit us and all beings. And we have also a lot of respect for their realizations that they have attained through their own practice over time. And as Buddhists, we also ask for their blessings so that we can understand the teachings, which can be quite challenging, even intellectually, to understand them, and put the teachings into practice, which again can be quite difficult. So we just ask for their blessings that we can do these things. Okay. All right. So the paramita of patience. All right. So there's two texts that I'm going to be referring to in these teachings. There is a link for the words of my perfect teacher in the description box below. It looks like that. And then there is not a link, but I'll put one later for this book, which is called The Way of the Bodhisattva. Okay. So these are the texts that I'm referring to. All right. So there are three aspects of patience. One is patience when wronged. So that's the kind of patience that we normally understood, that we normally think of when we think about patience. But there's also the second one. Hi, Timothy. So the second one is patience bearing hardships for the Dharma. So that kind of patience is more like to tolerate, to endure something, to sort of put up with some kind of difficulty. Then the third is patience when faced with the profound teachings. So these are the teachings on emptiness mostly, and that kind of teaching can be sort of upsetting for some people. So it's important to have some kind of patience with that, to have some sort of courage to face that, okay? And we're not going to be talking about that one today because it really takes a lot more time than we have to delve into that, okay? So the second kind, the first, second kind, the third kind, I don't know. Okay, the first kind of patience mentioned is patience when wronged, okay? For us beginners, that's really our main practice regarding patience, okay? So it says we should respond to attacks on us with loving kindness and compassion. So when someone insults us or talks about us behind our backs or, argues with us, instead of retaliating, which is, I don't know you guys, so maybe you're all enlightened, who knows? But from my perspective, my first tendency is to want to retaliate, right? To want to get very angry and hateful towards that person, and how dare they? Okay, but when really, according to the practice, we're supposed to respond with loving kindness and compassion. Remember how I just said a few minutes ago, just putting the teachings into practice can be really difficult. So this is one of those things. Okay. Now, if responding to someone who attacks us with loving kindness and compassion, it doesn't mean we're saying, oh, what you did is okay. All right. We're not saying that. It doesn't mean that we can't protect ourselves from abuse. It doesn't mean we have to be a martyr. Okay. It does mean we shouldn't do anything with anger and hatred in our hearts, okay? We can set boundaries, all right? We can, sort of remove someone from our lives, break up with someone or not talk to them anymore or this kind of thing. Hi, Angelina. But we do those setting of boundaries with love and compassion rather than hatred and anger. That's it. We can do the same things, okay, with hatred, or we can do the same things with love and compassion. All right. We don't want to have what's called idiot compassion, all right, where we allow ourselves to be abused. We allow people to walk all over us because we're practicing compassion. No. Compassion has to be mixed with wisdom all the time. It's two sides of the same coin, okay? So we have to be careful with that as Western practitioners, because often people make that mistake. And in our efforts to be a good Buddhist, quotes, or a good bodhisattva or whatever, we can sometimes go to the extreme of kind of martyrdom. Okay, so that's not what we're saying here, right? It means when someone is mean to us, for example, rather than retaliating with anger, we instead focus on their pain, okay? Focus on their pain. So there's the immediate pain that they have. And if we look back, we might see this ourselves when we have been angry. There's some kind of discomfort that we're trying to relieve by yelling at someone, by slapping someone across the face, this kind of thing. Okay. There is a that we're trying to relieve. We might not understand, or at least in that moment, understand that is happening, right? It might not be conscious of that, but if we examine it, we'll see that that's really the truth. So they have their, pain in the moment, right or wrong. We can say, oh, that pain is totally unjustified. That's okay. It might be totally unjustified, but from their point of view, it's real and it's justified. Okay. Then there's the pain of their past, right? So a lot of times people who are really mean, who are really nasty to others, we're treated like that as children, and that's kind of all they know. Or they're trying to deal with that pain of their history, right? Then there's the pain of their future. Because of the law of cause and effect, all the negative things that we think, all the negative things that we say, all the negative things that we do create karma, right? Create the karmic result of suffering for us in the future, in this life or in future lives. So for those three reasons, we have compassion for that person. Again, doesn't mean we have to just sit there and let them walk all over us, but it means that we don't have hatred and anger in our heart towards them, okay? So The Way of the Bodhisattva, the book I pointed out earlier, in chapter 6 called A Patience, all right, he has so many logical arguments for why anger and hatred don't make any sense, all right? If you don't have this book already, I so highly recommend it. And this particular translation, the Padmakara translation. If you look on our website, in the left column, there's resources. If you click on that, there's recommended books, and there's a bunch of recommended books. This is one of them. So if you don't remember, at least look at there and you can see. So Way of the Bodhisattva. This chapter is so helpful. Okay. Some of you who are here, who might have been with me before, know that, right now you can see I read this chapter so much that like the pages are coming out. So because I have a problem with anger, got to work with it, right? Excuse me. So in verse 10 of this chapter, he says, if there's a remedy for when trouble strikes, what reason is there for dejection? And if there is no help for it, what use is there in being glum? Right? So that addresses the feeling of frustration, anger that arises from things not going our way or various problems that we might have. And he says there's no reason for that. If there's a remedy for that, apply the remedy, then you don't have to be upset. And if there's no remedy for that, there's nothing you can do. So why be upset? Okay, I love this verse. It's so helpful. Then another verse I want to refer to here is verse 67. Okay, so, oops, wrong one. So 67 says, some do evil things because of ignorance. Some respond with anger, being ignorant. Which of them is faultless in such acts? To whom shall error be ascribed? Okay. So, we're trying to practice. We're trying to progress on this path. We're trying to, act like a bodhisattva. So we can judge the people who do bad things in our view. We can hate those who harm us. But if we respond to them with hatred and anger, then we're no better than them. We're no different than them. So we can say they're wrong and that's why I'm angry. But in being angry, we're also wrong. So it doesn't make sense, right? So then the other two verses I want to refer to are 87 and 88. Okay. This is regarding Schadenfreude, right? The when we take joy in the suffering of our enemies, right? It makes us very happy. So he says here, if unhappiness befalls your enemies, why should this be cause for your rejoicing? The wishes of your mind alone will not, in fact, contrive their injury. So he says, why should you be happy if your enemy is suffering? You didn't cause that. Just because you wished for them to suffer, that didn't cause it. So why should you be happy about it? And then the next verse hits you the other way. And if your hostile wishes were to bring them harm, again, what cause of joy is that to you? Quote, why then I would be satisfied, unquote. Are these your thoughts? Is anything more ruinous than that? So he says, even if your thoughts did bring them harm, like, really? You want to be that kind of person? You want to be someone who rejoices in the pain of others? Like, we've taken a vow. And even if we haven't taken that vow, the whole thrust of this path, as I said at the beginning, is to benefit all sentient beings. All right. So their happiness is our whole life. Their happiness is the entire reason that we're practicing. We want them to be free of suffering. So how can we rejoice in their suffering? Okay. So a few days ago, it came out that Trump got COVID. So many people rejoicing that he got COVID. This is really not a good way to be. Okay. It doesn't mean that, if we're the kind of person who feels like so many, everything he does is wrong, he's causing so much suffering in the world, he should also suffer. Okay. You can think everything he did is wrong. He's causing so much suffering. To respond to him with compassion, to not rejoice in his suffering, doesn't mean that you don't see or don't acknowledge that he's done a lot of negative things, okay, and affected really countless people and even animals with the environmental policies and so forth, okay? You can acknowledge that. You can say those things are wrong, but how is your hatred of him? How is your rejoicing in him getting COVID good? How is that good? How is that virtuous? Right? It's so ugly. It's so against everything that we're striving for. Okay? Doesn't mean what he did was okay. Doesn't mean, people say like, oh, it's karma. That's what they say. Oh, it's karma. Karma coming finally got him. If you want to hear more about that, I did a video on that earlier. So have a look at that. I talk more about it there. But if happiness befalls your enemies, why should this be cause for your rejoicing? And if your hostile wishes were to bring them harm, again, what cause of joy is that to you? Why then I would be satisfied. Are these your thoughts? Is anything more ruinous than that? Okay. Yes, it's his karma to be sick. It's also my karma to be sick and your karma to be sick. Everything that happens to us, good or bad, is the result of our own actions, okay? Including rejoicing in Trump's suffering or the suffering of our enemies, so-called enemies, right? And we actually do this all the time. Whenever you hear someone say, or whenever you say, oh, they deserved it. Oh, they finally got what was coming to them. Good. That's rejoicing in the suffering of others. Okay? We really want to avoid that. So then the other point we want to consider is under this patience topic is consider the problems that arise from anger. So we have to really think about that. On one hand, anger seems like so delicious, right? Oh, it feels good. I'm in a rage. It's great. We feel like that in the moment, right? We can feel very big. We can feel very powerful. We can feel like I exist, right? But if we really look at it, we see like, oh my goodness, there's so many negative things just for ourselves that come with that. When I was in Thailand, when I first got into Buddhism, one of the reasons was because I had so much anger. And so I asked the monk there, like, what can I do about that, right? And he said, look, next time that you feel angry, just sit down, close your eyes, forget about the reason why. She did this, he did that. Just forget about the reason why. But just close your eyes, focus on your body and your mind and how that anger feels for you, right? And I was so surprised by how much personal suffering was there when I got in the midst of the anger, right? Physically, it was just like a fire in my torso. My throat was, tight. I almost felt like I was being strangled, right? Then my mind, my brain just felt like it was being squeezed in a vise. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't want this. So, it gives us so much more determination to practice patience, okay? To reduce and eventually get rid of this anger that we have inside of us. Instinctively, we know that it's not pleasant, right? Nobody wakes up in the morning saying, oh, I really hope I get angry today. I would so love to get angry today. Nobody does. Okay, so we know it's not pleasant. But unless we really look at it, unless we sit down and be with that, we won't really understand the suffering that it is. We have to understand the suffering fully. All right. And once we understand that, not only does it give us increased, motivation to deal with it, but it increased compassion for others who are angry, which almost never occurs to us. With children, it occurs to us, but with adults, no. We judge, we run away, we attack, right? But it never occurs to us to think that person is suffering because of anger. Once we see how we're suffering, that compassion for them becomes much easier, okay? So the other problems of anger is, it causes an agitated mind. Our mind is always in this state of agitation, and it can lead to insomnia. It can be hard to sleep. We can lose our relationships. We can even lose our jobs because of having a short temper. And then there's physical ramifications of that, right? We can get sick because of it, high blood pressure, heartburn, ulcers, all kinds of physical things come. So in the West, we tend to have sort of two ways of dealing with anger, or dealing with any kind of emotions. One is we just fully indulge, okay? Start yelling, sending angry emails, talking viciously about that person behind their back, trying to hurt them in some way, okay? Or we repress it. We feel that anger, but we don't do anything. We don't say anything, okay? And that repression also leads to negative repercussions. we get sick, anger comes out in other ways, okay? So the repressing it doesn't work. Expressing it causes a lot of problems. So what do? Okay? From the Buddhist point of view, we experience it fully. We sit with that, literally meditate on that. And then once we see its true nature, which is that it causes us suffering on the outer level, okay? And on a more subtle level, it's impermanent, okay? It comes and goes. So we don't have to take it seriously in a way. We don't have to obey it. And just mindfulness, a breathing practice that we're going to do later, that also helps with that. Because when we're practicing, we're focusing on the breath. We're trying to keep our attention consistently on the breath coming in and out our nose. Meanwhile, what we're doing with the mind is we're just letting the thoughts go through the mind without judging them. This is a bad thought. This is a good thought. This is a neutral thought. It's just a thought. Without engaging in them. A thought of anger arises, and then suddenly we're off and running. Oh, that person made me so mad. I said this, but I said that. And next time I see them, I'm going to do this. And they remind me of this friend I had when I was 12, and she was like this and this. And we're not meditating, okay? So as soon as we realize we're doing that, we just come back to the breath, all right? So what happens if we do that enough is that eventually we start to see that those thoughts are just thoughts. They have no power beyond the power we give them. And if we just sit there and let them, kind of dance through our mind, tra-la-la, come, dwell, disappear, another one comes, dwells, disappears, then we start to understand, oh, that's just clouds going through the sky in my mind. I don't need to follow that, right? So the more we get used to that, then the more we're able to, let's say anger really arises, then we can just say, you know what, I'm not going to, indulge that. And I know that that is impermanent. I know that that's not solid and true. So we can wait. Shantideva says that too in this chapter. Especially as beginners, something really makes us angry. He says, just remain like a log. I love that verse too. It's such a good chapter. Don't move, right? Don't act. Don't say anything. Don't do anything. Just stop. All right. Which I think is a very compassionate way, actually, of dealing with that, compassionate way for ourselves. Because it understands that in the beginning, we can't go from 0 to 60. We can't go from hating someone to loving them in 1 second. So we take baby steps, So begin by just not doing anything, right? Then we can, sort of analyze the situation, A plus B equals C, read the chapter, think about the disadvantages, think about the advantages of patience and so forth. Then we can meditate, on patience and really try to get this in our mind. Then over time, that process becomes faster, right? We might stop, then we don't have to really think very long about these various aspects. Then we can respond properly. And then the more we practice and so forth, then patience, it just becomes the natural response. Anger doesn't even arise, okay? And all of that takes time. So we should be also patient with ourselves when we're trying to practice patience or really anything else on the Buddhist path, okay? So the next thing we should do is consider the advantages of practicing patience. Okay. As long as we don't lose our temper and retaliate when attacked, we're just purifying our karma. All right. As I said earlier, everything that we experience is the result of our own karma, whether created in this life or previous lives. All right. So there's 3 ways of purifying our karma, getting rid of that negative karma. One is to just go through it. We just go through it. So this person attacking us, if we understand karma, then they are helping to purify our karma. So as long as we don't retaliate, okay, we just realize and then have love and compassion for them, okay? Then the other thing is that we accumulate merit. By practicing patience, we accumulate merit. Or you can say good karma or positive energy, or however you want to phrase it. And in order to attain enlightenment, we need really vast amount of merit and wisdom. So if we are, being patient with them and not retaliating, then we're like they're helping us to attain enlightenment. And here in the way of the Bodhisattva and other teachings, it says, how can you practice patience, which is a quality of enlightenment, which is needed to attain enlightenment, if everyone is kind to you, if you don't have anybody pushing your buttons, okay? So we need those people, right? We need those button pushers in our life to practice patience, to help us along the path. So they're really doing us a favor. So there's a common thread in many teachings that say your so-called enemy. I mean, I know it's not a word we use a lot, excuse me. Let's say people you don't like. As the teacher, they are your teacher. They are your guru. So I know this sounds a little bit, it can sound, sort of Pollyanna, but it's not that. It's really true. If you think about what a so-called guru or teacher, spiritual teacher, does, it's a few things they do, right? They spur us on to practice. They show us like our success or sort of how far we've come. And they also show us how far we have to go. Of course, there's a lot of other things, but in regard to those 3 things in particular, this is exactly what someone we don't like does for us, as long as we're trying to practice patience with them, okay? That idea of practicing patience spurs us on to practice, just like the guru does. And if we've been practicing for a while, anywhere from a week to 20 years, and we see like someone upsets us, someone insults us or whatever, and then we realize, wow, that's so cool. Like I would have gotten so much more upset last week or last year or a decade ago, right? I would have gotten so much more upset, or I would have been upset a lot longer, or I would have gotten upset a lot quicker, Oh, that's so cool. I made some progress. I'm so happy about that, right? And we can, in that moment, also see, yeah, but, I still got angry, or I still got irritated, and this means I still have some progress to do on this path, exactly what a Lama does. So they are genuinely, truly very, very helpful for us. All right. Then in Words of My Perfect Teacher, it says, to have a bad temper, to be easily irritated, is a sign that your mind and the Dharma have gone separate ways. Right? So the Dharma is not just about studying, reading, etc. It's not just about meditating a little bit, right? We have to bring the teachings, bring our meditation into our daily life. Otherwise, what is the point? We can sit very nicely on our cushion. Oh, I have so much patience. I'm a very compassionate person. But if the moment we walk out the door, we want to smack somebody, so it's not worth it. We haven't done anything. So we have to really try to integrate these things into our life. Okay. So then the second type of patience of those three we mentioned at the beginning is patience for bearing hardships for the Dharma. So this kind of patience is, like I said earlier, we tolerate difficulties or endure them, or we persevere in the practice. We're tenacious, okay? And this is, for the sake of Dharma, you should ignore all difficulties, all right? So what does that mean for us, all right? In the text, it talks about, you should go live in a cave and, not worry about whatever, all right? This, it's not practical for us, all right? But it is practical for us in other ways, all right? How we, what kind of hardships we have as modern day Western practitioners for, doing our practice. One is, avoiding distraction, not being seduced by distraction. It's very hard these days, okay? Very hard. We have social media, we have, streaming TV, we have the computer, we have all our phones. Oh, for God's sakes, the phone, right? All of these things can keep us from practicing, Oh, I know I should practice, but, I really want to watch this series on Netflix, Oh, I know I should practice, but I have to look at Twitter and I've got to respond to everything I see. Oh, I have to play a game on my phone. All of these things can keep us from practicing. The other thing that we might that might be a difficult thing for us is getting up early or staying up late to do your practice. This is something that a lot of us really resist. I don't want to get up early. I need my sleep. I can't stay up late. I'm just not going to practice today. No, we have to practice every day. Then the other one is to not be influenced by friends or family who judge us or try to pull us away from practice. So that takes some kind of strength of perseverance, Sometimes our family just thinks we're ridiculous. They think we're crazy. They want all of our time, right? How dare you spend an hour or two practicing and, not spending every moment with me in front of the TV, this kind of thing. We have to be strong in those cases. It doesn't mean that we ignore our responsibilities, No, I'm sorry, kids, you have to starve because I have to practice. No, it's not that. But then the other thing is going against society's values to do our practice, whether our formal or in between practice. In between sessions is practice, okay? So it goes against society's values, right? Like getting all the money that you can, materialism in general, winning over others, no matter what. Gossiping behind others, gossiping about others behind their back, this kind of thing. This is like what society actually supports, even if, people like to think, oh, America's a Christian nation or this kind of thing, right? There's a lot of kill or be killed in our culture. And even smaller things like gossip, it can be a really prevalent thing in our workplace, for example, or among our circle of friends. Very hard to avoid. It can be hard to avoid. Excuse me. We feel close to others and bonded by gossiping. So we try to avoid that, change the subject or say something positive about that person or just walk away, Okay. So practicing patience in all of these cases eventually creates the habit of patience over our current habits of anger and lack of strength against how others might think of us. Okay. So what does that mean? So if you imagine a path in a field, imagine this big field with kind of tall grass, and there's a path. That path that we are on was created by our habits, our habit of anger, our habit of judgment, all that. So it's easy, like that's the path we've been going on for years. So, we've been walking in that direction. It created a path, right? All the grass is gone from that area because we've been going that way over and over again. So when we try to practice patience and loving kindness and compassion instead, we have to create a new path, which is naturally going to be more difficult, right? There's this tall grass, we're going to, and that becomes difficult in the beginning. But over time, that if we keep going in that direction, eventually that becomes a regular path, a very clear path. And meanwhile, as we're doing that, this other path of anger and impatience and so forth starts to grow over. And then this path of loving kindness, patience, etc., becomes the easier path. So really, it's just a matter of changing habits. We should think of it in that way, in something quite small and mundane, right? Instead of thinking of it in these big terms, which can make us feel like, oh, that's too much work, or that might be impossible for me. Okay, excuse me. So if we just think of it as habits, which really it is. Currently, I have the habit of anger and impatience. Now I'm going to create the habit of love and compassion. All right. It's just a habit. It's not like we have to say, like, now I'm an evil being and I have to become an angel floating down from the heaven. And we're not saying that. If we think of it like that, we're just going to be like, too much work. I'm not even going to try. It really is just a habit. And speaking of that, like when we're trying to develop patience over anger and hatred, we're not fighting with the anger and hatred. All right. We're not going, I have to get rid of this anger and hatred. Okay. We're just practicing patience. We're not fighting with that. We're creating this. And the more that we create the habit of patience, etc., then that just naturally wears away. We don't have to fight it. All right. And we do this, creating this new habit, etc., by studying. So texts like The Way of the Bodhisattva and other texts, by contemplating those teachings. So contemplating them means like we take them into our daily life. We don't just accept these things on blind faith. We don't just believe it because Shantideva said it, or the Buddha said it, or I said it, or whatever, right? Excuse me. We consider it with our brain. We're supposed to use our brain on this path, okay? So that means we do these things with an experimental attitude, with the attitude of a scientist. Oh, I've been presented with this theory that anger is suffering for myself. Well, let's see. So you do that meditation next time you're angry. You sit down and look at it and you say, well, maybe they're full of crap, Then you do it and you decide for yourself, oh, that really worked. That doesn't work. That teaching is not true, or that teaching is true. Or you observe others, look at that person who's angry. Look at how ugly they look, look at how, I don't mean ugly, like as opposed to in a physical way, but, just like the energy of that, our face gets red and sort of, it looks a little bit monstrous, right? Well, I don't want to be like that, So we take it into our life and we think about it. Then the third thing we do is we meditate. So meditation is the thing that helps us to really digest the teachings, helps us to make the teachings part of ourselves. Okay? So let's meditate. All right, so we have about 15 minutes. So we are going to do the mindfulness of breathing practice, because that is the foundation of any other practice that we might do. Okay. So for this practice, what you want to do is to take the posture of meditation. Okay. So if you're in a chair, just put your feet flat on the floor. If you're already sitting on the floor, just cross your legs in a way, whatever way is comfortable for you. Excuse me. All the other instructions are the same. It almost went down the wrong pipe. All right. So your hand should be either palms down on your knees or resting in your lap, one on top of the other, or with your, thumbs touching like that, like you're holding an egg. Okay. Whatever way you prefer. Arms are relaxed. So you're not holding them in, you're not holding them out, just relaxed. The back is straight. Most important point. No matter how you're sitting, back should be straight. So sometimes people slump, sometimes people go too far like that. Just straight but relaxed. Back of the neck is also straight. So that's going to, I want to say, tuck your chin in a little bit. I was thinking chuck. I was like, that's not going to work. Okay. Mouth is closed but relaxed. Tongue resting on the roof of the mouth. Breathing through the nose. Ideally, your eyes should be open, looking down about halfway. So if you just look straight ahead, lower your eyes halfway. That's the posture. If that's too uncomfortable for you, just go ahead and close your eyes. Some people have the habit of that. Over time, you want to train to meditate with them open, though. Okay, so that's the posture. We take this posture because it helps the mind in meditation. All right. Then we just bring our to the sensation of the breath coming in and out of the nose. So you just focus kind of at the end of your nose, but in a very relaxed and open way, okay? Don't get tense, thinking, I have to concentrate. Just gentle awareness of that breath, continuous awareness as well as we can. Then, although your body is straight, you want to relax your body as much as possible, okay? Then what are you doing with the thoughts? Just like I said earlier, a thought will arise, dwell, disappear on its own. It will be replaced immediately by another thought, arise, dwell, and disappear, and on like that, and pretty much an unbroken chain. So let that happen, but don't engage. All right? If a thought arises, let's say about some angry interchange you had recently, you don't want to jump in. Just let it go. You can label it thinking, come back to the breath, or you can simply come back to the breath. You want to avoid jumping in. So jumping in means, oh, we thought about this, I should have said that, they said this, I don't like them, blah, 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 and it runs on and on. As soon as you realize that's happening, because it's very likely to happen as beginners, then just let it go. Come back to the breath. Okay? It's that simple. All right, so I'm going to ring the gong to start and also to finish. Just let the thoughts come and go. Relaxed awareness of the breath. Not trying to block anything out. Not trying to stop the thoughts, push them away. You're not trying to, stop your sensory awareness. So maybe your heater goes on. Let that be. You hear a sound, you feel a feeling. Just let it all be. You include everything in your mandala, but you're mainly focusing, maintaining gentle awareness of the breath coming in and out of your nose. Now you can begin to count the breaths, counting either every in-breath or every out-breath to a total of 10 breaths, which helps us to realize more quickly if we've gotten distracted. So if you lose count, if you get to 10 without losing count, or if you go beyond 10, no big deal. Just bring the mind back, start again at 1. So please begin that now. Check your posture, especially your back. Make sure that it's straight but relaxed. Relax your body as much as possible while maintaining the posture. Relax your mind as much as possible while maintaining gentle awareness of the breath. Okay, so now we are going to do the closing prayers. You're welcome to join or not join, of course. There's a link for them in the description box below called Closing Prayers. So you can just pull that up if you want to join us. All right, so we begin with the long life prayers for the Dalai Lama, Jigme Khyentse Rinpoche, Tulku Pema Wangchen Rinpoche, and basically all of the teachers. These we do just in Tibetan. Kanri wawe kowe shinkan su pentan de wa malu juene chenre si won den sing yam su yi shape ya ga ba tu tengyo shi swasti jigme of John se chin of ki can say to God un sin nu dan cho Sabsun mishi doje ta ten chin tender men pe chin ne ta shin sho swasti tse la kyam se chin lap ten jun ne lun sin tak se gyu chu pema wang sang sum na dre kyo po ta ten ne lap chen ten de she ten ta ke sho Lama kungkam sangpo sowa deb chutu kuse ringwa sowa deb Trine tashin gepa sowa deb Lama dandre wa me pa chingi lo. So the next page, the first prayer we say once in English, once in Tibetan. The next three we say just in English, and then we do the 100-syllable mantra. By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy, wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of cyclic existence, may I free all beings. Sonam di tamche sekpani, chobne nyepe dranam pamche shing, kegana chi balon trupaye, sipe tsole droa sho. May bodhicitta, precious and sublime, arise where it has not yet come to be, and where it has arisen, may it never fail, but grow and flourish ever more and more. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. Ever absorbed in the display of divine forms and primordial awareness, appearance, sound, and perception in the state of divinities, mantras, and dharmakaya, may I, inseparable from the practice of the profound and secret great yoga, attain within the essence of mind the state of one taste. Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajra Sattva Tenopa Tishta Drito Me Bawa Sudokayo Me Bawa Subokayo Me Bawa Anurakto Me Bawa Sawa Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sawa Kama Sutsame Chitam Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Savatata Gata Vajramame Munsa Vajri Bhava Maha Samaya Sattva. Okay, so now we have some time for a question and answer. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat, okay? And I will do my best to answer it, all right? I don't wait a very long time, so if you do have a question, then now is the time to ask it. Looking at the chat. Any questions? Okay, looks like nobody has any questions. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me this morning. I really enjoy spending time with you guys. Please check out the links below, especially sign up for the newsletter. I'm here every Sunday, except Sunday of the month, doing the same thing. Next week, we'll be covering the fourth paramita. So what else? If you are able to make a donation of any size, we so appreciate it. We still, even though we're not at the center, we still have to pay rent, utilities, salaries, and so forth. So please do that. There's a donation link below if you can. All right, so have a great day. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.